Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. And today I have someone that's going to teach us a lot about money and taxes, which is ironic because we're in that moment in time where everybody dreads such things. But I think our lack of knowledge in regards to finances and taxes and how certain people play with it, and maybe we don't always have the best information to move forward and secure our portion of the American dream. I think we're gonna learn a lot today, and then we get to talk to him also about some of the legislative things that he has going on. So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring to you one of my fraternity brothers. I just found that out. How amazing, Councilman Douglas Lawson. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year to you. How are you?
Man, I am super thrilled to be here with you. Yesterday was a special day for you and the organization. You have another one coming up. We definitely have to get into that because the love for the D9 does not go unnoticed here. So, yeah, I'm a little partial, but I'm super happy to have you here and enjoying 2023. How's 2023 treating you?
It's amazing. I mean, it's off to a phenomenal start, and I'm just honored that I could just get to this level. A lot of us weren't able to make it this far, and to be able to make it post pandemic, to make it into 2023, I'm excited not only to just kind of serve, lead my community, but continue to provide literacy, financial literacy, and education to our residents, to my constituents, and just to people in general, letting them know that we can establish a financial equity and wealth within our community.
Starting the new year off on a high note means a lot, but it also gives people a lot of dread because we know what's coming tax season. Talk to us about one, how you got to where you are and where you're from. Like, where are you from? How did you get here? Tell us about you.
Well, my family, I'm first generation born here in the United States. My family immigrated from Jamaica, Kingston and Westmoreland, Jamaica. That's where my mother and father came, chasing the American dream, as you say. And when they got here, myself and my brother, I was born in Bronx, New York, and we moved to Florida when we were very young. They just weren't used to the cold weather. Coming from Jamaica, they said they can't deal with it. They're not going to raise young kids here. So we ended up in Palm Beach County, Florida. And that's where my story began, really just kind of getting acclimated to being a Florida boy and spending a majority of my life in South Florida. And it was learning from my mother and my father, the true essence of hard work and dedication and what it's like to just kind of come from the ground up and to really build from nothing. So that's why I think I fight so hard this day to just kind of teach about legacy, generational wealth, equity, and investing, because my family, when they came to this country, they literally had to just build everything that they had by themselves for their family. And we've had individuals that had generational wealth passed down years and years. And that wasn't something that my family was privileged to have. So we literally fought for everything that we have growing up in Palm Beach. And I'm honored that my mother and my father gave me the opportunity to really give me the chance to just be successful in life.
What did that look like for you? What did growing up for you look like? Talk to me about having a two-parent home. Did everyone else around you have that? Was that unique to you? And you were in public school, correct?
Yes,
What
ma'am.
the schools were like there? Like, give me a little bit of Florida, because I'm out here in California, and I heard you guys got something in your water. So I'm trying to figure out how different is it?
It's completely different. I mean, similar weather, and that might be it. Because here in Florida, it was tough with my family and growing up with a two parent household. It was amazing to have the opportunity, the love, the compassion, the support, but the opportunities just really weren't there. My mother was a CNA for many years, working two jobs to sustain. And my father was an entrepreneur. My mother worked for the same company for over 20 plus years. So that's why I was able to kind of see that love, that drive and dedication and commitment. And my father was the dreamer. That's what gave me my motivation and my drive to be an entrepreneur. He had a trucking company. He was a real estate broker. So he literally dabbled into multiple things. He had an auto body shop. So he tried to find different niches and ways how to actually establish wealth. And that learned how to build that, within myself with the hard work and dedication and commitment, and then also the ability to dream. So one thing that I realized growing up down here in Florida was that the opportunities weren't as easy as a lot of people were trying to make it out to be. You had to really fight and work for everything. I went to public school. I went to a magnet school actually in Palm Beach County called Suncoast. They were ranked top 10 in the nation, international baccalaureate. And one thing that my parents really did was instilled education into me. Even though my father really was an entrepreneur and everything he did with a high school degree, he still instilled the opportunity to go off to higher education, to learn as much as possible, and to educate yourself while still being prepared to have a trade or have something that can be tangible in our community. So I was able to earn a full scholarship to the University of Central Florida and graduated with an undergraduate in legal studies and business administration. So it gave me those opportunities to really kind of grow and build because of the support my mom and dad gave me.
Listen, you seem to be a smart man, but now you've gotten yourself into politics. How do you how do you even equate the two? Because if you look at what's going on in politics right now, you'd be like, listen, anybody with a brain would stay away from this stuff.
Yeah, I stayed away from it for a long time. I got involved actually when I was a kid. I was SGA president at Central Florida. I was the president of National Panhellenic Council and my fraternities and my chapter. And I was involved. There was politics really in everything. It's just what you do and how you actually do it. And unfortunately, they've made national politics a joke, as you can see, just as recently as last night, in regards to our Speaker of the House. So it's difficult. It kind of tears at my soul sometimes to see the opportunity and the benefits that we can as elected leaders doing in this community, but we're not taking full advantage of the opportunities we're given. So that's why I started on a local level. On a local level, I can literally impact my community and the residents in our city with the stroke of a pen tonight. Where on a state and national level, it takes so long for those policies to trickle down to the actual residents that's being impacted. We affect the police officers that are hired, the fire departments, the taxes that you're paying right here in our city as a local leader. So that's why local politics is so important. And unfortunately, everybody realizes and they have such a disdain for politics, but there's politics in everything that you do.
I would even say there's politics in your household, right?
Absolutely.
How you negotiate, how you get what you need and still make sure that everyone in the house gets at least something that they need. Talk to us about how you take your day job and your position and apply that to your household. And did you see that as a kid with your parents?
Yeah, the dictator, the ruler of my household was definitely my mom.
Mm.
My father was the head of the household, but the president was definitely Hillary Lawson. She was the one that kind of ran things and kept things stable and sane because she was consistent. She had that consistency, she had that dedication, and she understood that she had a dream. Even though she would follow and support her husband at the time, she still was focused on just making sure that the family as a whole was taken care of. And that's so important when you have to look at everything holistically. You can't just look at self-gain or the here and now. You have to look at the opportunity of what's going to happen here in the future and, for generations to come. And that's one thing my mom was really able to do.
I can definitely appreciate that. Listen, I want to get back to your college experience.
Okay.
Why Phi Beta Sigma?
Oh man, only the best fraternity in the entire world. Blue Phi, seriously, it's brotherhood, scholarship, and service. culture for service, service to humanity. The epitome of everything that our founding fathers created was something that I saw. And I'm honored to even be a part of the Divine Nine because every organization came from leadership. It came from dedication to impacting and being powerful within your community. And being that these organizations were founded in the early 1900s, you've got to realize that imagine what our community and society was going through to have Black men that were going to stand up and unify and combine together, whether it was Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, or the Great Phi Beta Sigma. They all decided they were going to come together, unify, work together, and establish a culture for service, a service for humanity, and to lead by example on campuses, whether people look at fraternities and they think it's just stepping or it's just chanting, when really it's about the serving your community part. And that's what our forefathers set up, and that's what we continue to do as a chapter and as an organization.
I can definitely appreciate that. Although I think your answer should have been something more like, because we have sorority sisters that are members of Zeta Phi Beta, and that makes us
And we're the
unique
only
and dynamic.
organization that is constitutionally bound because we're the only ones that have true sisters. Yeah, I completely agree. And I love my blue and white. I absolutely love my sorority. Zeta Phi Beta, you guys, you've held us up for so many years. So thank you for being a part of that organization, the most prestigious organization in the world.
All right. I'm taking a little personal pleasure here.
There we
But
go.
I do want to, I bring that up because I look at my experience in the blue and white family, especially during my undergraduate years, kind of as an extension of family, right? It was an extension of my family. These were my new sisters. This is, even some of my dysfunctional cousins. Like blue and white was my family. It was my support throughout my undergraduate years. And I think that's incredibly important when we look at undergraduate years and how tough they can be, even how financially straining it can be, even to a point where many students don't complete their undergraduate studies.
Mhm.
How would you say Greek life impacted you? Because you did have a pretty strong family unit, but talk about how it impacted you.
It established and created, I would say, lifelong relationships. I just actually went to one of my best friend's 40th birthday, and we celebrated in Belize. He's the director for Minorities of Medical Marijuana. Him and his wife were members of Phi Beta Sigma. They were line sisters, line brother and line sisters. He was my Neo, and it's one of my absolute best friends. It was a brotherhood and a sisterhood that was created to actually give you a life-lasting relationship, storytelling, opportunities to just kind of relate. I'm the godfather for his kids. So that was that bond that you establish as a young adult and realize that these lifelong commitments are something that are so important because you do business with these individuals. You help and you grow each other. These individuals helped raise me. They brought me from being a young adult, from being an adolescent, from being a teenage kid that didn't know any better, to going off to college and having to do everything and fend for myself. And we raised each other. So that was so amazing to have that relationship. And then 20 years later to look back and say, hey, you guys are the ones that helped grow me and take me to the next level from young adult to adulthood, to manhood, to being a leader. Those are the ones that told me, listen, you have a little baby girl. You need to make sure that you're being the best, very best father possible. Certain conversations that you couldn't have with your parents, especially being from a Caribbean family. There's certain conversations I couldn't have with my mom and dad that these individuals of Phi Beta Sigma and Zeta Phi Beta, they were able to sit down and talk about because they were experiencing the same thing. So the organization, I owed everything to them. And there was a strong Caribbean base within the chapter at the time. So that's also what led me to being a part of that organization and that local organization because they had the same similar ties that I grew up with.
I appreciate you sharing that. How did you get from your undergrad and then obviously your graduate experience to the Lawson solution?
Wow.
Talk to us about that.
That was having that strong background, having that strong base. My father, while I was in undergrad, said, listen, while you're here, go ahead and get your real estate license. I told him I fought it. I said, no, I have no interest. I was planning on going to law school at the time. And he said, just have it. It's an opportunity to receive and to have multiple streams of income and to have something that you could utilize in the future. And that's where it started. In my junior year, I got my license. After classes, I went and got certified. I got state certified, and I became a licensed real estate agent. And I saw the opportunity and the potential to not be constrained to a desk. That was kind of what he instilled in me as an entrepreneur, not having to punch a clock, but having the opportunity to be flexible. And then it began to show and teach leadership because then all my friends, I started to utilize my network to help them with home ownership, to teach them the importance of actually, buying and selling property and the importance of owning their own home, to where I have multiple friends that when we graduated college bought properties, and we're all now paying off these properties that we bought back when we graduated. So I owe that to my father because it gave me an opportunity to get into that space of being a realtor, and then also, expanding into credit repair, business development, tax preparation, because it's all kind of hand in hand when you look at the fact that home ownership requires you to have strong credit, good savings, good income. So now to have good credit, you have to do credit restoration if you messed it up like I did in college, or if you want to purchase a home, you need to get a mortgage. So it's understanding that you need to have and filed your taxes properly and done them in a way where you didn't write off all of your income to qualify for a mortgage, because they're not going to look at your gross income. They're going to look at your adjusted gross income, which is the dollar amount after you've written your expenses off. So there's so much that goes into it, and they're all intertwined. And the Lawson solution gives you an opportunity to be able to work with me financially, to work with me in regards to business development, to work with me in regards to credit, to be able to establish financial wealth and securing your future. I think you're muted, Sarah.
How has that been able to work out for you? Have you been able to grow this business, I would say, in our own community, or have you been able to expand that outside of our community? Because we're usually the ones that don't have the financial education, right? I think
Right.
we assume that others have it. They've had opportunity to understand and have access to finances, which also gives them a lot of answers to questions that we didn't even know existed. So talk to me about kind of the diversity of your portfolio and how you've been able to expand.
Well, I'm going to talk about the expansion, and how I continue to expand with my Bridge to Infinity Youth Entrepreneurial Camp, because I think teaching financial literacy and education
Wait,
is
say that again. Your
uh,
bridge to.
Bridge to Infinity Youth Entrepreneurial Camp. So,
Oh,
Infinity Taxes and Beyond is a LLC, a for-profit business. I created a nonprofit arm called the Infinity Foundation. That foundation was to establish financial literacy and education in our community, because it's something that growing up that we necessarily weren't being taught, that a lot of our family members don't understand the concept or have built on generational wealth because it was never given the information to them. So our Bridge to Infinity camp gives us an opportunity to teach literacy to youths, to young men and women from the ages of 12 to 17. What we do is we teach about credit, business development, financial literacy, opening up a bank account, having a checkbook. So what we do for our graduates is when they graduate, we work with my state rep, Javante Edmonds, suit for seniors, and he gives all the girls and boys a brand new custom made suit. We then also establish and register a business for them and get them registered so that they have their first business as an entrepreneur at the young age of 12. And we also set up a bank account where we work with Velocity Credit Union, Navy Federal Credit Union, or some local banks like Chase and Bank of America, where we've worked with them in regards to opening up youth accounts or youth bank accounts to show them how to actually write checks. Those are things that I didn't learn until I got to college. Even though my father was an entrepreneur, my mother was a steady, consistent businesswoman, that did not actually teach me about the importance of credit, where my 12-year-old daughter now has a 790 credit score because I've added her to one of my credit cards as an authorized user at the age of 8. So I gave her the opportunity to be successful. And that's what we try to show to our youth, because we weren't given that opportunity. So we have to make sure we're teaching financial literacy and education. And that was the importance of kind of the Lawson solution and bridging off into Infinity Taxes and Beyond. That's what the and beyond actually stands for.
that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. My husband actually opened up some accounts, stock trading accounts for my kids.
Hmm.
So they're learning currently how to check their portfolio, when it goes up, when it's down. They're understanding money in a way that I absolutely did not at 12 and 13.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. So
That's
starting
what.
out early is
Yeah,
a solution. That's what you're telling me.
that's it.
Starting them early. Because you would think, well, growing up, it was like money was not discussed with us.
No.
The only thing we heard is, "Do you got some McDonald's money?" when you asked for McDonald's, or,
Hmm.
um, you know,
That's it.
we didn't. But when you start talking about chores and can I get a salary allowance, that wasn't even a conversation. So being able to say, I understand the value of money, and how to increase your net worth at the age of 12, 13, 14, that's incredible.
You have to instill that at a young age because there's so many cultures that do that within their youth, within their children. You have kids within the political arena, within the corporate spectrum that are being groomed from, the time they can walk of how to take over. Where we grew up in the hip hop, basketball, football era, where a lot of our youth were being trained to be athletes or superstars, but running corporations, of building and actually growing, Fortune 4 and 500 companies, that can be taught to us the same way that we can be taught to take a jump shot. So why is it that we only can actually be successful through sports, and not just academics, not through education, not through leadership? Because even within Bridge to Infinity, we push and we talk about the process of standard institution education, but we also show them the opportunity of being in educating yourself through trade, of educating yourself through financial literacy, of being able to be successful before you even get to a higher education where there's college, and giving them multiple opportunities to be successful. You've got high school and college kids that are being that are creating wealth for themselves, making multi-millions because they have learned the ability of how to use social media, because they understand the concept of marketing and advertising themselves. And they need to be able to invest those dollars and reinvest those. So that's what we as a community have to continue to grasp onto.
I've said, and I've heard it been being said by many people, our current tax code is racist.
Yep.
Speak to that.
So our tax code was created to keep the poor poor, to keep the rich financially stable, and to make sure the wealthy continue to just pillage and take advantage of the ones below them. And unfortunately, a large amount of the minority community fits into the middle class and to the lower incomes. And what we're seeing is that it takes advantage of the tax rates that are being charged to the middle class. The one percenters, for the most part, I would say about 70, 65 to 70% of them. You have a lot of self made millionaires, but a lot of the wealthy individuals had their dollars passed down. And guess who created those tax codes? Our forefathers, that were actually the ones that were establishing the wealth. So they had no interest in taxing themselves. They had interest in taxing the individuals that were working for them. So if you have the working class and the lower middle income working class that's actually being taxed at the highest rates, then we're put into a position where we're keeping that middle class right where they are, in the middle of just taking care of and propping up the entire nation. Because if the wealthy have found ways, and if Amazon can find a way to not pay taxes as one of the wealthiest corporations in the world, then why is it that me as a working man here in my community has to pay a 35% tax rate? So we have to make sure that we establish and understand the tax codes and make sure that we can kind of leverage and get the same opportunities that are being offered to the rich and the wealthy by using our write-offs, by having our deductions, by making sure that we're creating LLCs and S corps, making sure that we're diversifying our portfolio. Why do you think that they invest into these nonprofits? Why do they write off checks for hundreds of millions of dollars to nonprofit organizations? Because they're on the board of the directors and they're the electeds, and they're actually the executive directors for these. So they're receiving a check that's tax deductible. So they write off the money by sending it over to these nonprofit entities and organizations, so that they don't have to pay taxes on the for-profit side, and then they're taking a profit and they're getting paid on the actual nonprofit side. So there's so many loopholes, and that's just a tidbit of what's out there to how the rich continue to get richer and the poor continue to just stay where they are.
What's your best advice to people that want to learn how to take advantage of some of these tax regulations that we have never been educated on? Tell the people how they need to move forward with their finances, with their companies. Do they start an LLC? What do I need to do to be able to get some of these tax breaks that those people over there are getting?
First and foremost, you need to reach out to Infinity Taxes and Beyond.
Good answer. Good answer.
Contact Douglas Lawson or one of my 34 agents that work for the firm. Um, and you need to make sure that you find a professional. They see and they produce so many commercials for H&R Block, and they don't realize that H&R Block is supported, funded, and founded by the government, the IRS. So the reason that they're trying to get your billions back, America, and they're putting dollars into marketing and commercials is because they're trying to minimize the amount that's going back into your pocket, because they're just going to do basic returns as opposed to giving you the insight that's needed. So you have to work with a trained professional that's been certified in actually preparing and filing taxes. Everybody can't afford an accountant, but a professional that actually understands what the tax code looks like, what write-offs are actually legal and allowed to be done, and what you need to do throughout the year to make sure you safeguard yourself. Because the minute you start trying to circumvent the system, they're going to find ways to try to put you back into the system. So you have to make sure that you're doing it the proper way by filing your taxes on time, by making sure you register your business, by making sure that you're paying your right amount that's owed, but writing off the expenses that you can and keeping documentation of those expenses. So number one recommendation is finding a professional in the field, because everybody can figure out how to change their oil, but most people go to a professional to get it done. So I just believe you have to find somebody in the industry that's going to do it. And we've been doing it for coming up on 10 years this year. So we're honored to continue to push forward with Infinity Taxes and Beyond and build that brand that we established so many years ago.
I don't say a tax professional. I need a tax strategist.
There we go.
Some of y'all need a tax strategist to understand the strategy and help you plan, not just to get your taxes filed, but what you need to do next year to be able to get even more tax breaks, what you need to do in 2 years, how you need to plan, how you're going to execute getting out of a situation where you're scrambling, or even that you're paying taxes when you probably could be getting a refund the legal way.
Yeah. Everything's legal. I don't mess around with the alphabet boys, the FBI, DEA, IRS. I leave all of them alone, because at the end of the day, it's just about trying to build wealth for yourself and for your family, and legally be able to do it the same way that so many people are doing it.
Amen.
I look at more so myself as a life coach, a financial life coach that gives you an opportunity to build wealth through tax breaks, through investing, through your credit, using other people's money to make you money. Those are some, trigger words and keywords that people just throw out there that you read in books or that you see they throw up on memes and stories. But it's a way of life that you have to continue to operate with, is by making sure you're building multiple streams of income. They say that, 7 streams of income, but how do you actually establish that? Why do you establish 7 streams of income? What's the purpose? What are the benefits from them? I can't afford to pay a filing fee every year if I'm not generating revenue on these 7 streams. So how do I make them profitable? How do you buy and sell businesses? So there's multiple things that go into being a financial life coach. It's giving you an opportunity to properly file your taxes, to invest using the capital that you've saved from not paying taxes, and to build up your net worth and your portfolio to be able to fill all the gaps of your expenses, and to continue to build that pool of money even to a bigger amount, so that you can have some wealth to live the rest of your life on. Because realistically, at our retirement age, the way that this government's going, Social Security is not going to exist. So we have to prepare ourselves for something that's coming, and that's building wealth for yourself and for your family.
How did you win your election?
Hard work, dedication, being aggravating, knowing how to campaign, market, being in a fraternity, throwing parties, being socially engaged. Elections, I'm honest. I'm not a politician. I'm a servant leader, and elections are popularity contests. All they are is who's got the most name recognition. It's not who's the most qualified. Unfortunately, I see that far too often in so many communities that it's whoever gets their most flyers out. That's why you get 1,000 mailers during election season, because they just want to instill that name in you 100 times versus having this kind of sit down conversation to say, what substance do you have? What are you going to do for the people? Are you going to be intentional? So I really worked on the business aspect of. I've done marketing for so many years. I've owned 2 nightclubs throughout my life. I've been involved in fraternities, multiple organizations. I know how to actually advertise, market, and to campaign. But I also have a trusted name and image in my community. Even though I don't have great grandparents from this community, I don't have that generational legacy where they're voting for, their great grandson, or little Dougie, he went to church here. I actually was able to establish a bond with the residents here in the community and let them know that I'm going to be a trusted leader in this city because I've done it so long as a business owner in the community.
We have a really big apathy problem here. And I don't know what percentages look like for you, but we don't have a very large, we have like 20% people that vote, right? Most of that is stirred up and perpetuated by the current leadership because they understand you make enough noise, people are just going to stop caring. Because on a local level in particular, it's about the immediate issues. But when it starts getting too congested, you just be like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother. What is your best advice for communities that suffer from apathy? Because at the end of the day, there still isn't a lot of people that vote. When you look at the numbers, there are almost more people that don't than do. What's your thoughts on that?
Our average in Palm Beach County is about 13, 14% of the registered voting base. My community is about 38,000 residents, 26,000 registered voters. And in my last election, there was a total of 5,500 people that voted.
Wow.
So we had a little bit higher number across the board because we've been being intentional about trying to, get people out, exercise their right, get registered to vote, make sure that you actually vote. But to have 5,000 people of close to 40,000 residents determine who the elected body is going to be is discouraging because now not everybody's voice is being heard. Not everybody's putting their input into saying, these are the leaders that we want to help us with our tax base, to make sure that the police department is going to be intentional about community policing, about serving and protecting, and to make sure that our firefighters are going to be on a timely fashion of getting to them. Our EMS are properly trained to bring in some type of equity into our community where the dollars are being spent within our community for our community, to be intentional about disparity studies, which focuses on government spending. So those are the things that you want to make sure that your elected official is doing. But when you have such a small population of people that are determining it, and in my community, there's certain areas that block vote, meaning that they'll just go with whoever that leader has told them to vote for, and that's hundreds of votes. That can sway and dictate what happens in certain elections and not necessarily control the elected individual there, but also determine who they want and who they want to see to make sure that their mission and their direction and their initiatives are met based on their concerns of block voting. I'm not really seeing that in certain parts of the minority community because we don't really focus on the local politics that's necessary. So much more people will go out in November on presidential and national elections to vote than on the local level, and not realize that the change that can happen is based upon what's happening in City Hall. Mm-hmm. But the process and the voter suppression that's happened with what I've seen in local levels by these long council meetings, by making them so highly contentious, by allowing for individuals to be so combative and to make it so ugly in these elections, has pushed away the voting base to have no interest. So we have to kind of retrain and also create succession planning, retrain our young leaders and retrain our older leaders to learn how to actually lead by example and be servant leaders, and then create succession planning, continuity in government, and train some of these young men and women on how to actually take over so that when I'm term limited out, we have 3 terms, that the next person can fall in line and continue with what the process and the policies I've put in place and improve upon them, because I'm not perfect. I'm just going to continue to listen to what the people say and implement from my strategy, my experience. But if I start to train the next person, we'll have continuity in government and we can have succession planning that's going to build our city to another level.
What's a servant leader?
Servant leader is a leader that's going to just serve the people, not serve policy, not serve agendas, not serve self gain or self preservation, but just serving the people. Somebody that's going to lead by example and that's going to serve by example. So if it's something that needs to be done, be the first one there and the last one to leave.
Listen, I've enjoyed speaking with you. What I'm learning is that being a councilman isn't it for you. I think something's next. Why don't you tell us about that? What do you see in your future?
Wow. I see serving for another couple of years for the city of Riviera Beach, and then seeing what my wife and my family has in store. Making sure that I listen to my household first, because I can't continue to just pour out of my cup and not continue to fill my own. One of the biggest things that I've had to focus on is making sure that my four walls and my household is taken care of, starting with God, my personal faith, my belief, making sure my family, my wife, and my daughter are taken care of. And then I can be a better leader for my community. And it just depends on what we see as fit for our household. And moving on from there.
I appreciate you spending time with us today. Let the people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can get help with their taxes, how they can follow your journey and support the things that you're doing.
So, as a commissioner, I'm pulling up all my information for the city council, first and foremost, because any type of leadership, I'm trying to create some type of planning for people in different communities. My next goal is going to be to establish a training session for local leaders to really create legacy, generational wealth, succession planning, continuity in government. Because I believe local leadership is so important. When I'm talking about local, I'm talking about your state, I'm talking about your county, I'm talking about your city. I'm talking about within your community that's going to directly impact your community. Then I'm also going to allow for that leadership and that training to transpire into something that grows even bigger. Community wealth, community generational wealth. So you as a local leader can impact your families, your community, and then you can also impact your business owners, because as a local leader, we provided and just approved $500,000 to home ownership and business development right in our city. So those are things that I can do as a local leader. So to reach me in my professional, my capacity as an elected official, you can call my city office, which is 561-301-2443. Either myself or my legislative aide, Javaris Jackson, will be able to answer that call. And that's if you have any interest in the city council, city of Riviera Beach, or just as a local leader or elected. In my personal and my professional business, Infinity Tax and Beyond, my office line is 561-766-1046. You can go to infinitytaxesandbeyond.com to just register for information. We'll have somebody that reaches out to you. And you can reach out to us anytime. We're on Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. And it gives us an opportunity to not just file your taxes. We actually provide an opportunity of financial literacy, educational, wealth, and we're life coaches. We give you that understanding of how to gain that financial freedom that everybody kind of chases after. So those are the two things that I'm most passionate about and keep pushing for.
I appreciate you again sharing this. Listen, people, it's not just about filing your taxes. This goes a lot deeper than just filing your taxes or filing an extension or, opening up an LLC. There is a method to the madness when it comes to taxes. And when you have the right person in your corner, you don't fear. It does not give you anxiety when this time of the year comes up. One, because things are getting taken care of in a timely fashion and by someone that is professional and reputable. There are people that are crooked and not so reputable, but there's an opportunity to do a little research there. At the same time, it's important to have a strategy behind your finances. Start early. You're never too late to learn. And when you have someone that has a stellar reputation and experience that shows that they know what they are doing and they can help you, take that opportunity. Don't waste it. Find a way to make your talents shine financially, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what entrepreneurship is: finding a way to make your talents, your skills, your education, financially benefit you and create generational wealth. So thank you, Frat, for spending some time with me today. Thank you for talking to our audience and sharing some of your leaders and learners gems with us. Definitely keep in touch.
It's definitely time to shine. I will stay in touch, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time today, and continue to be great for 2023.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What do you think about today's episode? And share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.